Oh, we walk around with a white baby with blonde hair and blue eyes, and people think I've just stolen this baby. What we're learning is that babies are parasites that will take everything from you.
It involves losing weight. A pregnant woman losing weight.
Hyperemesis gravidarum is basically where you have extreme...
Today we're talking about pregnancy health. Have you had a baby? Did you have morning sickness, or were you dreadfully ill during the pregnancy? Sadly, good medical support, nutrition, and supplement advice is limited in the world of medicalised pregnancy health, which is exactly what we discuss on today's show, covering how the medical system treats women that have horrific pregnancies, the blatant difference between naturopathic support versus conventional medical support, and the constant level of guilt, shame, and inadequacy that mothers feel for not getting it right. We even go full taboo and talk about race issues when it comes to mixed race babies. #cancelled soon. Comedy attempts aside, I feel that a lot of you will resonate with this conversation today and where it goes. If you're a loyal listener of the show, we've also got something really special for you as well, so stay right until the end. Otherwise, let's get into it. What's up, my healthy friends? Episode 400. How wild is this? 400 episodes, and it's still very much the mission of this podcast to create a world where everyone is someone's healthy friend. And every single one of the 400 episodes will give you the tools to become the healthiest, happiest, and most evolved version of yourself so that you can live an abundantly healthy life. Now, we've been here for 5.5 years on the podcast airwaves, and there has not been a single week that we didn't release a show. Shout out to my team behind the scenes for making this happen, Janet and Channy. I very much appreciate both of you. And today we have maybe the most special, most important, and close to my heart guest of all time. This woman is a hypnotherapist, has a background in psychology, and works as a relationship and self-love coach, helping you to heal your recurring relationship issues or attract Mr. Right into your life. And sorry, I'm already taken. She's also the host of the Lead From Love podcast, and her name is Yalini Nirmalaraja. Welcome to the show, Yali.
Thanks, Maddie. Well done on saying my name correctly.
Yeah, there's lots of A's in there. And for anyone who's wondering, Yali is actually the woman that I share my life with, that I live with, that has dinner with me every night, and basically we're doing life together.
And I think you're forgetting one thing.
What am I forgetting?
We're having a baby together.
Yay! Cat's out of the bag. We're having a baby.
Yeah. I'm growing you a little healthy friend.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The little mascot to the podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So many people have, I've worked with mothers for so many years, and so many people say, do you have kids? And there's part of me that always felt like a bit of a fraud or an imposter. You're like, you can't market your services to parents and not be one. So here we go.
Yeah, it was one in training.
Yeah.
You just can't see it yet, though.
Yeah, and obviously I'm already thinking about all the amazing podcast content that's going to come out of this deliciously cute caramel 5-year-old. Viral content right there.
Yeah, it'll be like daddy and me time in the podcast session.
Yeah, is it bad to already think about monetizing your child? Probably.
I think publicly it's taboo.
This is very public.
Although we tend to cover a lot of different issues that are really, I don't know if taboo is the right word, but politically incorrect. I mean, we spoke before we were pregnant a lot about what the baby would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so normal to say, I wonder what colour eyes it'll have or what colour hair. But we often talk about skin colour because I've got dark skin. So I refer to myself as having chocolate skin and you're white. And so we always talk about how the baby might be caramel or will be dark like me or white like you. But I find that people get really uncomfortable when we start talking about colour in a public setting.
Yeah, it's well, I've already said the word caramel, so maybe there's some people listening that are triggered.
Yeah.
But we're in such a weird political, social world at the moment where everybody's offended by everything. People that aren't even in that minority group are offended for the people over there. And it's just a very weird place to be. And I've like we've both experienced going through this process and telling our very white group of friends, like in different groups, and being like, oh, we don't know, is it going to have brown eyes or blue eyes, or is it going to be caramel? Is it going to, and you've jokingly said many times, I don't want to go through this horrible pregnancy, and we'll get into that, and then give birth to a little blonde white baby. Like you'll feel a bit.
It's nothing like me.
Yeah, you'll feel a bit ripped off by that, right?
Yeah. I'll look like a fraud. I'm like, we walk around with a white baby with blonde hair and blue eyes, and people think I've just stolen this baby. And I'm like, it came out of me. Like I carried this around for 9 months. It is definitely mine.
Well, that's this. We've talked at length about this. I'm having the same concern on the other end. It's like, this kid better be at least caramel because I don't look like I stole the baby.
Oh my gosh, just kidnapping children left, right and centre.
Yeah, but it's just weird how so many people get uncomfortable by these conversations around skin colour and everyone's so sensitive. And I know, I mean, maybe being white myself, I can understand because, the racial thing, was terrible for many parts of the world and many people have experienced severe racism. But it's to the point now where we're almost pretending we're colourblind.
Yeah, and that really frustrates me. And it's okay for me to talk about colour, but it's not okay for you to say it. So it's okay for me to talk about myself and having chocolate skin. But when you've referred to me as having chocolate skin to someone else, that you got judgment around that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can say that. You're like, but that's what she calls herself.
Yeah.
And that does frustrate me, the fact that we've got to pretend we're blind in order to uphold a perception of equality when I love that I've got dark skin.
Obviously, so do I. That's how we accidentally made a baby.
Yeah, I mean, but we make jokes about this stuff all the time, right? I'm like, you need a tan so this baby recognises you, or you'll be the only one that we go to the beach together. You'll be in a tent with a hat on and an umbrella whilst the rest of your family's out in the sun not having to worry about anything.
Yep, that's going to be the scenario. Everyone's going to be able to enjoy the Australian sun and I'll be under 3 hats and a giant umbrella.
Burning and still red.
Doing my best to avoid skin cancer.
Yep.
But your pregnancy has been far from fun, which is a big part of what we wanted to share today. So what is Hyperemesis gravidarum?
That's a fun term for a really exciting pregnancy. Hyperemesis gravidarum is basically where you have extreme nausea, vomiting, to the point that it's quite debilitating. So we were really naive coming into this pregnancy. And the thing that just is so surprising with us is before having a baby, we talked about everything. We talked about how we wanted to raise a kid. We talked about our values and disciplining and being on the same team and good cop versus bad cop, how we would feed them, obviously being a nutritionist. We even talked about my diet through pregnancy and how you wanted to really take the lead on that. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'm happy with that. But the one thing we didn't talk about was the actual pregnancy. And we just assumed that it would be like everybody else, a little bit of morning sickness, maybe a little bit tired, but otherwise fine. And in my case, it's really been 3 months of not really being able to function, not many days not being able to even have a shower because the water would either make me feel more nauseous or I would be scared that I was going to pass out in the shower because I was so undernourished, so dehydrated. It's meant regular trips to the hospital, and we were joking that that's become our regular date night because that's the only way we can get fluids into me. And now I have standing appointments at the hospital every week to get fluids.
Yeah, which is wild for everyone listening to this podcast because especially the loyal listeners that have been on this journey with me for 5 years of sort of going from working in a hospital setting and sort of moving to a position of, that we can do everything better naturally. And now it's in a situation to be like, oh my God, I can't even feed you. I can't even help. I can't do anything. And the only thing we can do is go back to the place that I quit. That I have so many memories in that building.
Which every time we go back, you're like, I have a lot of memories here.
Yes.
It's so weird being back in this context. But it's not what either one of us expected. And the weird thing is, I'm known for my love of food. Like, I'm known for how I eat because I eat surprisingly a lot more than the average person. And I love cooking and I just, it's what nourishes me, right? And so we joked, it's like I've been training my whole life to eat for 2. And the moment I have another life living inside of me that I'm responsible for, I need to feed, I'm not even eating for 1.
Mm.
And that was really hard. And it's been weird because I've developed a lot of traumas and a lot of fears now because I've had such severe responses to the little bits of food that I've managed to get down that I'm now scared of certain foods. And I haven't been able to take any of the supplements. And so that's created some challenges through the pregnancy, through the relationship, through how we navigate this stage.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned, you've been training your whole life, because just to give listeners a bit of some context around the beginning of our relationship, because of the work that I do working with women and mothers and emotional eating, binge eating, sugar addiction, and that kind of thing, I have this sort of propensity to investigate unintentionally, just like doctors unintentionally diagnose everyone they meet, and therapists psychoanalyze everyone they meet. I am always aware of people's eating behavior. And so because you're quite slender and quite tall, I naturally thought, we spent dating and spending time together. I'm like, wow, she eats a lot, but where does it go? And I actually thought for a while, I was like, there's a hidden eating disorder here. Because I work in that world, so I'm like really aware of it. And I've, had experiences with partners in the past that have, been in that dark part of their world. And so shockingly, now we live together and there definitely isn't.
No.
Somehow you just have metabolism that if we could bottle, we'd be billionaires, basically.
I think it's definitely a cultural genetic thing, but you are the only person that has ever looked at me and thought I had an eating disorder.
Well, I mean, there's very few men that work in this world, even in nutrition and naturopathy, it's like a 90% female lean to begin with, and then to even specialize further in female eating behavior. Like that's a pretty niche thing for a man to be in.
No, it's very true. But it's mind-boggling to me because I hate vomiting as it is, which has been one of the traumatic parts of this pregnancy because I'm constantly over the toilet bowl. But if anything, in meeting my friends, one of the first questions they'll ask you is, can you feed her? Because she eats a lot. My friends joke about how they need to pack snack packs for me when I'm driving home from a night out because even though we ate dinner, I'll need something to snack on the drive home.
Which is funny because that is the exact sign I would look for in a client to say, all right, there's a challenging relationship with food here. But usually that person...
Just a love.
Or a love, but that person usually would also have a barrage of health issues as well.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't have those. But this which kind of leads me back to the conversation around nutrition and pregnancy, because one of the ways as let's, say the masculine male provider that I was always my whole life very confident, or my whole adult life, very confident that I could bring to our little now family was healthy food and nutrition, and to be able to confidently create the healthiest baby that's ever been born. And because we're both very healthy as a default, like in our normal lives, we thought, it'll be a normal pregnancy to the point we never even talked about it. Because of course we're so healthy, there'd be no issues.
Yeah, you were ready to make pre-prepared meals for the week, for the different stages of pregnancy, for the different nutritional needs that I and the baby would have. And I was like, okay, you're like, I'm going to be that guy. And I was totally happy for you to do it until I actually was pregnant.
Yeah.
I had this experience and I'm like, you can try.
Yeah.
But really I'm living off Salada biscuits and Philadelphia cream cheese.
I know, which just killed my spirit in every way. And it was so challenging. And, to go back to that more medical term Hyperemesis gravidarum, for the people listening, one of the big indicators, and you're probably sick of hearing me highlight this because I find that it's the quintessential, scary detail of this story, which is that, it involves losing weight, a pregnant woman losing weight. And you're already tall and slender, and so for me as the nutritionist that's I could solve all these problems. I've got hundreds of dollars worth of stuff in the cupboards. If only we could get it into her. And every attempt resulted in the bucket or the toilet. And so I'm over here really concerned, of baby development, but after a few ultrasounds and realizing baby's fine, baby's a parasite, then the worry for me becomes your survival through childbirth, and so which, has been weighing on my shoulders for the whole time and meant that I'm not showing up amazingly in our relationship because I'm the answers are in the cupboard. Just put them in your body, but you can't. And I feel so powerless just watching your suffering and projecting into the future all the negative possibilities. And it's been hard to hold, as you've experienced from me.
It was challenging for both of us in two very different ways. And I think it's sad because when we found out we were pregnant, we were really excited and happy and looking forward to the journey together. And I think we really thought we were going to be doing it together
Mm-hmm.
and being able to share that experience. And because my nausea was just so bad, I've basically been a zombie for 3 months, and I think the sad part, especially for you, was a sense of feeling like you lost your partner.
For sure.
I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I was, half unconscious the majority of the time. I didn't have the energy to do things. I couldn't even go for walks outside. So I basically lived on the couch for 3 months. And the weirdest conversations is, how do I get more calories into me?
Yeah.
So if I could manage an apple, it was, okay, well, let's get some nut butter on there to increase my calorie intake. And then there isn't that room for us for connection, for sharing happy moments, because I'm here trying to survive and just get through the day. And you're sitting there going, but she hasn't taken this supplement. And my iron was already low. My vitamin D was already low. And you'd spent like $5,000 on getting the best supplements for me because you realized very quickly I wasn't going to get the food in me. And I couldn't take the supplements, and everything was a trigger. And just it got to the point where even looking at the supplements would make you gag. And you had to hide them around the house so that I didn't see it because I'd be so easily triggered. And so then you're worried. You're worried about me. You're worried about the baby. You are so unbelievably aware of the stages of development of, its brain is forming and the spinal cord and the key organs. And I'm semi-comatose going, wake me up when this is over and I don't know how I'm going to make it through another day. And then I think, when I think as women, we have different pressures in society compared to men. I think there's always this level of comparison of how you're going versus someone else, or there's this particular standard that you're forever trying to live up to. And I think pregnancy amplifies that. And so, especially as someone that used to be really healthy with such a love of food and fit and would exercise, to become someone that was just not here and not able to take care of herself properly, and being with someone that knows what you know about nutrition, it becomes an extra layer of pressure.
Yeah.
Of I'm letting the team down, I'm letting you down, I'm letting the baby down, and it feels like I'm failing everyone, including myself. And then you would talk to people that were health practitioners and they're like, well, are you taking the prenatals? And I'm like, I can't take anything. And even in their moment of trying to be supportive, you can see the face change or drop, and you immediately feel like, okay, I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not doing good enough and I'm failing. And you're so aware of all of your shortcomings. And it's so hard to carry all of that when all you can do is go, I'm just trying to get through the day.
Yeah.
I'm literally just in my fight or flight response, trying to hope that I survive through this.
Yeah.
And, and we had some challenges through that because we were both carrying the burdens in different ways. And it just felt like, how do we come back to being a team and not fighting against each other, where you're worried about me not taking supplements and the baby, and I'm worried about letting you down. And, because it almost feels like if I'm not taking the supplements, I'm not trying. And we had a conversation that I said, I can't put myself through more trauma to prove to you that I cannot physically take the supplements. It's almost like, unless you see me throw up, it's like I'm not trying hard enough, and I'm just saying it's a cop-out. I'm nauseous, I can't take it, as opposed to, oh, yeah, it really triggers her and we can't afford for her to lose more nutrition.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a really challenging time in our relationship because I can't do it. Like, that's the disempowering bit for me. And don't get me wrong, for all the women watching and listening, I know I have no idea what's going on here, right? Sure, I did pregnancy nutrition, and I know more than the average guy. And I've said in lots of contexts, I wish I was the average pleb because they seem to live blissfully unaware. And in this context, I really feel that I wish I was just a typical bloke that was just like scared and caring, rather than I know, like you said, this week the nervous system's developing. There was no omega-3s that went in this week. Like, that's the narrative that's been going around my head. And yeah, we've had some hard conversations in the last few weeks. And yeah, I'm working on changing my tune and compartmentalizing my fear, because it comes with multiple other layers, but equally, it's still nothing compared to what you're actually physically going through.
Well, I mean, I don't want to make it a competition or a comparison game. It's we're both having an experience through this, and I think the space for both of them. Because my other pet hate or my pet peeve is that I feel like when the woman is pregnant, the narrative becomes all about her, and your role is just to support the woman. But I think in some ways that becomes unfair because we're both having an emotional experience, and I want there to be space for both of us in the conversation. But it was really just navigating how we can still come together and move through that, because realistically, your knowledge and your expertise and your passion, that's an asset. That's what we thought was going to be advantageous when we did get pregnant. It's just that we weren't prepared for this. And I think going through the pregnancy made us realize how naive we were. We're like, oh yeah, well, we're totally on the same page in terms of raising kids. Like, we've got this, obviously knowing how ignorant we are. We haven't actually done it yet. We don't know how we're going to be when we're sleep deprived and exhausted but yeah, the pregnancy journey was a surprise.
Yeah, so far. There's still plenty to go.
Yeah, but it's getting better. I will say that it's definitely getting better. Obviously, I have enough energy to do this today and getting more food in, still working on getting enough hydration in, but the hospital trips are helping.
Yeah. And now, we've had some big chats. Maddie's apologized. We've fixed some things. Things are moving in a much better direction. People must be wondering, what are D&Ms or hard conversations with a relationship coach? They probably look just like yours, which, they're sometimes a bit colourful and a bit intense, and people are, uncomfortable. But now I've compartmentalized my fear to the fact that I'm now living with a house full of foods that I'm also addicted to and that didn't previously live in our house. And I'm dealing with my own imposter syndrome for I teach people how to create boundaries around this stuff. And my boundary was it doesn't come in the house. And now it's all you can eat. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get fat.
Yeah, which has been hard because I'm generally someone who's actually quite healthy, or I'm known amongst my friends for being really healthy. So not having my normal diet, not being able to eat really good quality foods and lots of veggies and fresh and wholesome. It's, I've lived mostly off, I'd say, chips, salada biscuits, crackers, bread has been my main staple for the last 3 months.
And you didn't eat chocolate for how many years until you were pregnant again?
Yeah, although I still wouldn't say I really crave chocolate. I don't particularly like the taste and
Definitely
flavour of it. Yeah, but it's no, because I got Maltesers the other day because I wanted the malt, and then I realised there was too much chocolate on it, and I didn't like that. And I've gotten onto peanut M&Ms because it's a textural thing, because it's crunchy and it doesn't taste like chocolate.
Yeah, it's a journey.
But the thing is, I came home with them, and I don't eat chocolate. You're like, who are you? What are you doing?
Who have you become? Because how many years had you not eaten chocolate for?
Oh, I have no idea. So I accidentally.
Yeah.
So the reason I don't eat chocolate, because I used to, which is a weird thing.
It's a funny story.
Like, who doesn't like chocolate? I accidentally hypnotized myself. So I used to be very addicted to chocolate and would eat ridiculous amounts. And again, I wasn't the size you would expect for someone who ate, had the sweet tooth that I had. So it was a joke. Like, people thought all my organs had moved out of the way and squished to the side, and all of this is my stomach, because that's the only way I can eat the way I eat. And then one day I realized that it was actually embarrassing that I could put away that much chocolate, and that wasn't a point of pride anymore. And I was putting a recording together for a client to quit sugar, and I just happened to be really ready to let go of chocolate that day. And I didn't realize that while I was doing a recording for a client that I could also be hypnotized in the process. And so once I finished the recording, I couldn't stand the smell of it, the taste of it. Just, nah. And I still wouldn't say that I wouldn't buy a block of chocolate and indulge in that. I'm just looking for textural variation to my salada lifestyle.
It's such a funny story because the hypnotist hypnotizes herself. Like it's...
Which you can only do if you want. So, you know, the recording was to quit sugar. I had absolutely zero desire to quit sugar. So my brain interpreted it for what I wanted.
Yeah.
So, but it just goes to show that when you want a change and you're ready, your brain just does it immediately, which is amazing.
There was something you mentioned before about putting lots of chocolate away and you wouldn't expect you to be that size. And what it reminded me of is a couple of conversations we've had because in the first trimester you've been so incredibly unwell, but you're not visibly pregnant. So when you are out in the world, you just look like a drugged homeless person unless you're dressed like this. And so we were talking about
how... you still can't really tell.
Yeah, we've been talking about how, like, how do you navigate this, like, I need a seat on the train or whatever when you aren't visibly pregnant but are seriously struggling?
Yeah. So the really funny thing, though, was in the first trimester, you're the one that actually suggested, maybe you need a fake bump.
Yes.
Because that's the only way that people will realize you're not on drugs, because I was out of it. I mean, I remember us trying to meet up with some friends for dinner, and any social dates that we had in the calendar were really scary for me. So I'd be stressed out in the lead up to it. I'd be stressed on the day because it was just, how am I going to feel that day? How am I going to feel in the moment? How am I going to make it through? How am I going to leave the house? Like, am I going to be able to have a shower today? And one night that we went out to catch up with a couple of friends, we were late because I was vomiting my guts up, and it was like, they're already there, so I didn't feel right cancelling. And we got to the restaurant and the lady that greeted us was walking us to our table, and I walked at such a snail pace because I couldn't walk like a normal person because that would make my stomach feel like it was just getting jiggled around and make me more nauseous. So I was literally just really slowly stepping, and she stared at me like there was something seriously wrong with me. And then when I had to go find the bathroom, I was just pacing it, going, where is it? And all these people were looking at me, you know, and it was late in the evening. So it very much looked like I was drunk and drugged out.
I didn't roofie her drink. She came with me.
Yes. But there's no way for me to say, no, I'm just pregnant, because I don't look it.
Well, it got to the point where everywhere we went, when we did go out, I would just announce it to the waitress or the waiter or whoever, so that and if it was a female, there was just this like face of understanding. Even if they were young and clearly hadn't had kids yet, it was just like that's a woman thing. Like, oh, I'm there, I got you. Like
No, but it was really sweet because every time you announced it, I think people thought you were doing it because you were really proud, as opposed to cover for me, because it's like, this is why she's acting like
I know she doesn't look pregnant, but she is. Like the video at the ultrasound thing told me that there's a baby in there, apparently.
Yeah, we've heard the heartbeat. It's happy. It moves around a lot. So.
The other thing that, I mean, is very much in the essence of this podcast is the comparison of experience between natural medicine experiences. And by natural medicine, I don't mean plant medicine. That's a conversation for another day. But again, up against, you know, Western medical. And, you know, the reason I left the hospital was because I believed there was much, much better outcomes, experiences using natural medicine, natural health, food as medicine. And so we've had our own experience with the naturopathic side of pregnancy and also the mainstream medicalized, you know, conventional hospital birth system. So do you want to talk a little bit to just your experience as a woman being seen, heard in either of those environments?
Yeah, this has been an interesting ride because we're generally on the same page when it comes to alternative health. You know, we prefer to do things naturally. And I've had to really be a part of the Western medical system because it's like, I don't think it's necessarily the wisest to be absolutely one way or the other.
Agreed.
Because you never know what life is going to bring. And if I'm in a car accident, I want to be rushed to an actual hospital, right?
Don't put herbs on my broken back.
Yeah, basically, if I've got a brain injury. But I thought that going to doctors when I was pregnant was going to mean that I was going to be taken such great care of and I was going to be seen and everything was going to be heard. And the first few times I went to the doctors, I think I came home and I told you, I just feel really invisible. None of this is actually about me.
In front of female doctors.
In front of female, and good female doctors too, ones that we've heard really great things about that specialise in this. And the first few appointments, it just felt like it was bureaucratic. And I don't mean to say that the doctors aren't capable or uncaring. I think it's just that they're limited within a system where they've got 10 minutes per client.
Yeah.
And so they don't have the space to give proper duty of care. And so going in saying I'm pregnant, the first thoughts they're going through is check boxes. You know, we need this paperwork. Which hospital are you going to? We need to give a referral. Have you had these blood tests? We need to get all these things checked. So it's not about how are you feeling? How's your journey so far? Have you had any issues? It's all about paperwork. And I went, okay, well, maybe that's just the first session. And the next time it'll actually be about me. And because I was already struggling at that point.
Yeah.
And so the next time I went in, it was, okay, well, now we need to sort out this paperwork and that paperwork. And I'm like, hi, does anyone see me? Does anyone hear me?
There's a struggling human here in front of you. Yeah.
And I had mentioned how I was struggling with really bad nausea. And it wasn't even a conversation. It was, oh, still? Okay, here's a prescription. And I came home feeling really deflated and frustrated. And it happened like this for some time. And to the point that in the end, I asked you to come with me.
Yeah.
And said, as a man, maybe you'll be heard where I'm not being heard. And so I needed you to come in and advocate for me because I felt invisible in my own appointments and I wasn't getting the support that I needed.
It's also my outlet to actually be like, I'm medically trained. I can shine here.
Yeah. And you would challenge the doctors. And because one of the concerns that we had was that my iron was really low before I was pregnant. And once I was pregnant, I wasn't able to get the supplements in to then build it. And the difference that we experienced is when we went to alternative health or naturopaths, they would look at my blood results and go, you need an iron infusion because they're looking at optimal health of the baby and optimal growth. And the medical system tends to look at survival. It's good enough for the baby to survive as opposed to this is providing optimal conditions for the baby to thrive. Yeah. And because it was just good enough for survival in the medical system, no one would want to take any form of intervention. Although we went to the hospital, spoke to the midwife, she looked at my bloods. First thing she said was, you need an iron infusion.
Yeah.
But then the hospital system won't give it to me.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating because I'm getting told I need certain supports and no one will give it to me. Yeah. And so it's off the books, you can say these things, but on the books, it's fine.
Yeah. And I think as well, the experience with the naturopaths, sure, it was a private experience. So it means it was paid for. It wasn't cheap. You know, we paid for their time. And maybe if we had paid for the doctor's time in the same way, it would have been a different experience, possibly. But the thing is that, you know, it was, as you would expect, it was very holistic. There was checking in on emotions and I think we were even asked about how are we connecting? Are we okay together? And it was this sort of wholesome experience and very much that optimal, you know, which is, you know, these are the things you need in each week, each trimester so that we can create the healthiest baby. And one thing that surprises me if I think about the system that I rant about on this show all the time is that with an increasing number of babies that are born with allergies and behavioral issues and as a result of our food environment now, the fluoride in the water and, you know, all the things, it shocks me that the doctors aren't more concerned or there isn't some kind of medical or government push to say, hey, there's a clear change in the last few generations of babies that have been born. And maybe some people think I'm a conspiracy theorist, but, you know, we're getting less intelligent. We're getting less all of the things. More sick babies are being born. That there isn't some emphasis on, oh, okay, what can the medical system do to help? It's still in this idea of, oh, well, if it's born, then that's enough for us. Great.
Yeah. It blinks. It's moved its hands. It cried. Perfect.
Yeah, totally. It's wild. But yeah, we had a beautiful experience with the naturopathic help and support. But then it just became nobody could help because all of the advice we couldn't get into you.
Yeah, we had to stop that because what's the point of paying for very expensive advice when we can't act on it? I will say the only time that the doctors, in terms of the Western model, ever considered my mental health was when I broke down in tears in the doctor's visit because I was just so distraught. I was so exhausted. I was so overwhelmed and I just felt like I was breaking.
Yeah.
And it was only once I broke down in tears that she went, oh, okay, well, maybe we need to consider getting you some extra supports.
Yeah.
But before that, I really feel like when we went to a naturopath, when they saw me walk in, it was very obvious I wasn't well. And it all became around about how are you? How are you going? How can we support you? With the doctors, I felt like, and it was unintentional, but every time I walked in and I was very slow and I wasn't moving well and it was very obvious I wasn't in a good state of health, I feel like the first question was, oh, what's wrong? Oh, and why are you still like that?
Yeah, that was definitely the attitude. Why are you still in this condition?
And I felt judged as though there was something wrong with me as opposed to, whoa, this pregnancy is not going well.
Yeah.
Is she okay? And it wasn't until I cried that I ever felt like I got some level of emotional support and understanding.
Yeah.
And you can see that I'm struggling. I'm telling you I'm struggling. I'm telling you that the medications you're giving me aren't working. It's not enough. I can't continue like this. But yeah, it felt like judgment versus the support from the naturopath.
Which just adds on to the pile of guilt and shame and inadequacy that you talked about before that was coming at you from me and from society. And, and it's like, if anybody that understands it should be a female doctor that's a mother, right? It's like, we often talk about, and I don't want to open up a can of worms here, but like feminism and female empowerment and all of the things that we've got going on in society. And it's like, sometimes women are women's worst enemy. Like someone that's been a pregnant mother looking at someone that's going through it for the first time and struggling, it's like, shouldn't that be the place or the source of empathy?
Yeah. And you would think so, but I think that's where most of the judgment comes from, where, oh, you should do it like this. Because I think we were talking about how when you're pregnant, people go, oh, do it however you want. It's your body. But the moment you make decisions, it's, oh, why are you doing it like that? Isn't that dangerous? Are you doing a home birth or are you going to the hospital? If you're doing a home birth, well, that's really dangerous. Don't you care about your baby and its survival? And why are you doing this? Or why are you eating that? And you shouldn't have liver and you should be taking these supplements. And why? It's minefield.
Yeah.
And you can't please everyone. And I feel like because of that, the pregnancy becomes about pleasing other people and trying to put everyone else at ease. And I'm the last thing on the list. It's not about me just trying to tune in, focus on my body, doing what's right for me, honoring where I'm at in this moment and forgiving myself for all the things that I can't do. It's like all of these extra pressures and burdens of having to carry everyone else's expectations and meet everyone else's needs.
Which I think is possibly, there's some wise women listening that are thinking, welcome to motherhood. Welcome to parenthood. A constant and ongoing feeling of shame, guilt, and inadequacy that you're not doing everything for everyone. And I work with a lot of mums and, the embedded everybody else is before me. I don't matter. It's just been a way of life for them for a very, very long time. But ideally, us knowing that now, we can do something to maybe not remove the narrative entirely because society is what society is and we're all partaking in it. But maybe at home we can start to already build in, and we've already had conversations, building in mum matters and, her time matters and her energy matters. And she's not here to give everything to everyone and forget about herself, And I say that for those listening or watching that are thinking like, oh, welcome to hell. That have got this narrative of their own that they haven't been able to change.
Yeah, and I don't want that to be our journey. And I know that it's easy to say that before we've actually really started that chapter. Yeah. And we don't really know what that's going to hold.
We probably sound super naive.
We're going to do all of these things. We're going to have me time and you time and us time. But it's also what we do for work, right? We teach people how to fill their own cup so they can actually show up and be present for other people. And we live and breathe that. We have, thus far. And so I think the benefit of this journey and going through it is I think it's meant that we've faced some really big challenges and had some really big conversations. But what I'm most proud of is that we've always come back together, because ultimately what we're really wanting to create is to be a team. We don't want it to be combative. We don't want it to feel like me versus you and my needs versus your needs. It's how can we support each other
Yeah.
And so I think something that we do well is even when things are hard, we still hold space for one another to listen to both sides of how the other is feeling and then find a way to come back together and look for solutions.
And so all you need to do in your own relationship to create that is marry or get with a psychologist that's an expert in relationships. That's all you've got to do. And then you can have a happy relationship. It's easy.
Well, it goes both ways though, right?
Yes, it does.
It's all about just two people that want to make things work and want to support each other and put each other's needs as priorities. Because otherwise we'd be living in silos.
Yeah. Which would be very easy to do in this internet doom scrolly, everybody's sitting on the couch separate on their own screens. I feel like we're in a world for relationships where it's very easy to slip apart and stay apart and have your needs met in ways that are not done by your partner. So I think the fact that we're conscious of that, and that probably, we're probably going to do a bunch more of these podcasts where we talk about raising Caramello as, oh, by the way, we call it Caramello because Caramello koala, chocolate, Yali is the chocolate, and I am the Australian koala. So that's why we call it Caramello. But we're gonna talk about screen time and with raising Caramello and how we're going to navigate that, and that'll probably be weird in social circles. And we're going to talk about probably the home birth thing, and we're probably going to talk about vaccines and nappies and elimination
communication.
If anybody knows what that is, send us an email. We're going full hippie.
If you've done it, we want some help.
We do. So we're going to probably do a heap of things that are, different, not just in our relationship, but in our little family that hopefully, ideally mean that we raise a very well put together, human. And I think, being a little bit older, having kids is a good thing because we've done our own trauma processing, and it just puts us in a position to be able to make better decisions. I hope, #naivety, because, I'm not 22. We're not 22 and just broke and lost and confused and it's all happening at 1,000,000 miles an hour and then it's over and it's like, oh my God, I fucked my kid up. And sure, we'll probably do that. We'll probably mess our kid up. But
one's perfect.
I'm hoping that, being sort of mid to late 30s and with the careers we've got, we have a few more tools than the average person moving into this space.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to add to that is, we talked about our ability to communicate and show up for those conversations, but really communication is just one part of the picture. The second part is we both walk away and try and do the work. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect at it. Doesn't mean we won't have more conversations around it, but we're willing to actually figure out the solutions and then try and implement them.
Yeah, totally. So I guess before we finish up, there's a few things I want to ask, but give me your thoughts. Hair color, skin color, eye color. What's Caramello going to be? Or gender? We're not finding out gender, so add that to the list.
Yeah, that's going to be a surprise. So anyone listening at home, if you want to weigh in on whether it's going to be a boy or girl, I'd love to see what people think.
We should run a syndicate.
Prize for the one who gets it right. I think a boy, but sometimes I feel like it's a girl. But I'm going to go with boy. I'm going to go with caramel skin. Because I feel like it's a boy, I feel like it's going to look more like you. So curious to see if it'll have blonde hair and blue eyes.
Well, and we recently caught up with some friends and they had a photo of one of their friends who was a Botswanan mother, so a black mum, and had 2 white blonde kids to a Scottish father.
Blue eyes, just very Caucasian. And and like you said before, we've joked about how this pregnancy has been so unbelievably hard so far. I'm like, I did not go. I'm not going through 9 months of this to pop out a white baby that looks just like you.
Hey, I'm fine with it. But,
obviously it doesn't really matter. I'd love it. I just want it to be healthy. But
of course.
It's fun having this conversation.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts?
I think it's going to be very hard to compete with your brown hair genetics firstly. So I think brown hair, I really want it to have blue eyes because, well, that's maybe dangerous if it's a girl. If this is a girl that's got blue eyes and looks anything like its mother, I'm going to have to beat up a lot of teenage boys. So let's go brown hair, blue eyes. I think caramel skin probably makes sense, especially looking at some of the other nieces and nephews in the family.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's a boy. I think we've felt like it's a boy since the beginning, but I'm fine either way. Like I'm happy either way.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
In delivery.
Yeah. Old school.
Yeah.
How old school of us. We're not going to have a gender reveal party, which is a thing these days.
Yeah, which is not really us anyway.
Yeah.
We're quite private with our personal life.
Yeah, till this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what we're sharing with you.
Yeah.
Which is nice though.
So I guess for everybody listening that's like, Yali sounds amazing. How come she hasn't been on the show before? Where are we sending people to experience our family, see little bits of the journey? Or maybe they want to hypnotize themselves out of chocolate. Where are they going to find you?
All of that good stuff. So you can find me on social media, Yalini _Nirmala Raja, which is just a surname that rolls off your tongue, which the links will be in the show notes, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
But because I have been so unwell, I have taken a pause from that the last few months. I'm hoping that as I get better that I'll be more active and can share more things.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll be on this show a little bit more because you're obviously amazing and the world needs more of you. And even though you have taken a pause from the things in your world, for anybody that is interested, the Lead From Love podcast is your show. So I am the family promoter of Yali's podcast because she feels next to my podcast that like it's just this little cute thing. And no, right? We're putting it out there. People need to listen to it. It's really good. And the last question that we ask everybody is, what is one piece of health information you wish more people knew about?
I want to say that even when you're not eating and getting nourishment and nutrition into your body, your baby will still grow. Because I think we tend to look at health as what you're getting in. And somehow babies, what we're learning is that babies are parasites that will take everything from you. And yes, you still need to nourish yourself on the other end of that. But I think if you're someone that is going through or might go through a really hard pregnancy and you're worried that you're doing damage to this baby because of just the state that you're in, I think it's just really reassuring to know that they're designed to survive and that it's going to be okay. And somehow you make it through on the other side.
Yeah. And I think if anybody takes anything from what you just said, it's me. It's going to be okay. And genetics have been doing this for 1 million years and it's all going to be fine. And it's not going to rest on what's in our kitchen cupboard, right? It's like, it's all going to be okay. So, but thank you for coming and being a part of my world. You're very much a part of it on the back end. But now you're finally in the public sector with me.
Thanks for having me on. We've talked about doing a podcast together for ages. I just thought that the first podcast we did would be my professional capacity.
Yes.
But it turns out it's about our journey, our baby.
Yeah. Well, we'll do both. We'll do plenty of both. So I'll put all of the links in the show notes and the caption below. And otherwise, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.